Would you mind explain like talking about some or a few examples of explosives? Talked about that prior, but I just forgot to ask.
So as far as explosions go, we could have high explosives and low explosives, and you want to get into that at this point here of like our TNT versus our black powder, shall we say, kind of idea or concept. So high and low explosions are two general categories, and again, we try to categorize things and see what they fall into just to better understand at least a broad sense because there's a lot of variability there. But high explosives, low explosives may be a new term. Most people don't really understand that maybe necessarily, but I think when you hear the examples, it helps. So example, a high explosion, that's going to detonate rapidly. That's going to create a shock wave. That's going to be your TNT, if you will. That's going to be that high explosive. Low explosives burn quickly, but don't really detonate. It's kind of like the black powder example there.
Mhm.
So we're looking at the differences between these. Our high explosives, again, they're going to detonate. They're going to have that reaction. They're going to have a front that kind of moves through a material. And typically that's faster than the speed of sound. So that's why I like the slow motion that we have access to in high-speed cameras. On the internet, you can really see some of these things happen that occur so fast. And usually with the light, people's dilate and you really can't see it for yourself. I think most famously, Mythbusters was really famous for this, for showing a
Love that
lot of the
show.
explosions they did and really had the budget for those high-end slow motion cameras even back in the day. And you could really see poor Buster getting hit with a shock wave or something there. And that's really those high explosive have that shock wave. It's a very rapid shock wave. And that's really what causes the damage. So you would see, the lines kind of moving, and then you would see that wave come right through, and that's really, unfortunately, what does most of the damage. Now, as I said, TNT is a great example. Dynamite, the old, cartoon dynamite, the typical explosion is what they're typically thinking of there. Now, it is used in demolition. It's used in mining. It's got the big, the big T handle. Military applications will also use those high explosions, those shock waves. Those looking for that particular physical effect there. Now, if you contrast that to our lower explosives. Those reactions front move through material slower than the speed of sound. So I won't say easier to see, but easier to capture, I guess the best way to put it. They do burn rapidly, but they do not produce a shock wave. You won't see that little shock wave moving across the screen there. Black powder and fireworks are a great example of these, and they're typically used as propellants as well. So they could be a component of a high explosive if you're looking at like a rocket and transporting that. The rocket itself that's providing the propellant is actually a low explosive. And it could be delivering, unfortunately, maybe a high explosive. And that's basically can be used also in safety fuses. You can kind of see the burn rate and the transfer there. So those are other applications for those low explosives. But those high explosives are, I think, the ones typically people think of that shock wave, that loud bang, that loud, big, detrimental physical damage type of shock wave there.